When I started planning this video, it was going to be a critique of Primal diet founder Aajonus Wonderplanets and his cult-like followers. But when I started doing my research and even read a couple of chapters of his iconic book We Want to Live, I definitely became a lot more interested in his philosophy. Despite having Primal in my name, I don't actually follow the Primal diet. I would describe myself as a raw carnivore. So I subscribe to the conventional carnivore belief that it is our species-specific, species-appropriate diet, and I just intuitively eat the most indicated foods for our physiology without feeling like I'm following a diet as such. Where I differ from the mainstream is I think that raw meat is the most indicated food because it's more nourishing, satiating, hydrating, and less carcinogenic than cooked meat. Us carnivores believe that the world's dietary change has been the biggest factor in the sharp rise in disease and illness over the last 100 years. Primal followers sort of believe in the same thing, except with a little more emphasis on raw foods and detoxing. Most primal influencers I see online I would actually describe as raw carnivores rather than strict primals, and I know that many of them are also kind of sick of the prophesizing of every point that Aajonus made. That being said, I'm going to share my main problems with what he actually said and what the other primals preach, and the main points where I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm still a little skeptical. So firstly, the Randle cycle doesn't matter. The Randle cycle, to oversimplify it, explains how the body can only utilize one energy substrate at a time. So when you're burning fat, glucose oxidation is inhibited, and when you're burning glucose, fat oxidation is inhibited. I've seen some primals try to disprove the Randle cycle by saying that the Randle cycle doesn't matter, but the types of food you're consuming does, and that it's just the body's natural mechanism. So yes, some food is more glycating than others, and primals are eating some of the best carb sources in my opinion, but still, modern fruit and honey are man-made and simply not very ancestrally consistent. If you live in a higher UV environment, then I think smaller amounts of fruit eaten outside is perfectly fine. But otherwise, don't think that you're getting away with a constant Randle cycle activation just because you're eating whole foods, or because you eat fat with your carbs to slow the blood sugar spike. Fructose is actually more glycating than glucose, and slowing the spike only reduces a peak, but it increases the total time of blood sugar elevation. I can appreciate that the Randle cycle is less of a concern when you're not consuming both carbs and fat together in significant quantities, so a little bit of fruit or honey here and there is fine, especially if you're trying to gain weight, then it may be optimal. But I think that some primals should be a little more concerned with the Randle cycle if they haven't optimized their light environment, or if they're constantly eating food, which brings me to my next critique. Meal frequency. I think it's more ancestrally consistent to eat 1 or 2 large meals per day, assuming you can do so without starving, as opposed to regular small meals like Aajonus promoted. This is especially important for people on ketogenic diets, so I could see why fruit-eating primals might not do this, because they're not needing to be bumped out of ketosis through large protein-dense meals like carnivores are. But still, constantly eating, especially mixed meals, can be pretty anabolic, and when anabolism exceeds homeostasis, it promotes growth and aging, so I don't support the idea of multiple meals per day with snacks. Also, I definitely don't believe that eating foods right before bed is optimal, because in my experience I find it harder to sleep when I'm still digesting. Aajonus said that sleep is a repair window and therefore you need to supply your body with repair nutrients right before bed. I can respect this point of view, but you can achieve the same thing if you just eat a large nutrient-rich meal in the evening. He also recommended waking up in the night to eat for people who are ill or detoxing, but I just can't see how the extra nutrients could possibly outweigh the circadian disruption. Emphasis on organs. I'm not sure if this was Aajonus' teachings or the modern mindset, but a lot of people seem to consume organs more than muscle meat. Here is how I look at organ consumption. So organs are more nutrient-dense than muscle meat, this is a fact, but in nature most people would have consumed organs in the correct proportion to the muscle meat from the animal they hunted. Although, from observing hunter-gatherers and other animals, we know that the alpha tribe members and best hunters get the first pick of the organs and may be eating more than in proportion to muscle meat. So given our food-abundant modern context, this is what I like to do. I'll eat a few hundred grams of liver, a brain or two, and some heart and kidney every week, plus occasionally some other organs like testicle or spleen if I have them. What I don't do is consume only liver or more liver than muscle meat, because I think it's really not necessary. I think the whole vitamin A toxicity is BS, but the amount of copper and other minerals that you're consuming may be too much. This excess may not outright poison you, but these nutrients work synergistically, activating and inhibiting the absorption of other nutrients. So you may be risking an imbalance, especially if you go from eating no organs to mostly organs too quickly. Cooked meat is bad for you. Aajonus in his book talked about cooked foods at the same level as processed foods, which I just have to disagree with. Yes, cooking meat kills the enzymes and can create carcinogens, but as long as you're not visibly charring the meat, I believe that this is going to be pretty insignificant, and many of them will actually be destroyed in our stomach acid. And I can't overlook the irony. If our stomach pH is strong enough to handle the rotten raw meat, then surely it's strong enough to handle cooked meat. I agree 100% that raw meat is more optimal for digestion, health, and aging, but when I eat cooked meat, I never view it as unhealthy, just less optimal, which I think is a better mindset overall, especially in a modern world. His take on enzyme mutation was really interesting, but personally, with so many people thriving on a cooked carnivore diet, I'm just not convinced that cooked food is completely dead and harmful. Vegetable juices. I won't waste much time on this because most people these days are familiar with the nuance around plant toxins and anti-nutrients. I will say that this probably isn't optimal at all, and that personally I would prefer cooked vegetables over raw. I'd rather eat dead food than nutrients bound up with anti-nutrients. But I do respect the vision in seeing veggies as hydration or as medication used to detox. I think that some of his detox recipes were fascinating, and if they work for you, then I can't hate. Also, if you're eating completely organic and more natural vegetables grown in your garden, in your local latitude, then I can't hate on that either. The next points aren't so much critiques, but more just ones that I'm curious about or confused by. The detox. The detox protocols and stories that I read about in We Want to Live are a bit of a turn-off because of the whole worse before you get better premise. Aajonus recounts when a severe rash broke out on his nose and spread to his eyelid, causing pus-filled blisters and skin to peel off. He took the loose skin to a lab and found out it tested positive for dental epoxy, which was applied to his nose by a surgeon after a baseball injury he experienced at 15. Aajonus explains that after 20 years on the diet, his body became healthy enough to detox the epoxy, which caused the rash to break out. On the one hand, this is fascinating as hell to me, but on the other hand, it kind of scares the shit out of me, because if he got a disgusting rash for weeks just from a little surgical glue, what would happen to someone like me who's been through chemotherapy and had my leg completely rebuilt with metal and plastic? Am I just going to wake up after 20 years of eating raw meat and my whole leg's just decaying and colorful toxins are seeping out of it? I'm kind of kidding, but please do hit me up in the comments with your detox experiences, especially if you were exposed to medical toxins like me, because let's face it, this isn't something I can really learn about from the mainstream medicine. So I will need to rely on some anecdotes here. Salt is toxic. A lot of salt is definitely contaminated with heavy metals and microplastics. And we know that if you try to eat too much salt at once, it will literally kill you. I think that a little bit of salt here and there isn't a huge concern, but Aajonus sees things differently. He wrote, 4 little bitty grains of salt, including sea salt, destroy approximately 2 million red blood cells. It can take at least 3 hours to replace the blood cells and about 24 hours to clean out the dead cells. During these processes, important nutrients are leached from the blood in the body. As a result, salt speeds aging. Now this is a very interesting take. I'd like to think he didn't just make it up completely, but I need to see some evidence before I start preaching the no salt thing harder. I mean, I could give you anecdotes of healthy communities who eat salt, but that would mean nothing because you could give me examples of people being aged faster by salty water, for instance. Personally, I haven't noticed much benefit from cutting out salt, other than my taste buds being more sensitive and natural. And the salt-fearing thing is just a little ironic because fructose is also toxic, but Aajonus talks about consuming cups of fruit juice and honey at a time. Also, parsley and other herbs are known to cause infertility, but he mentions eating 15 sprigs per day in one of his detox protocols, which is surely a little more harmful than a bit of salt, right? Moldy berries. My understanding is that Aajonus promoted eating moldy berries or drinking it as a juice to detox from certain jabs that may be lingering in the bloodstream. He said that this detox is particularly brutal, with a lethargic feeling lasting 30 days and up to a year, sometimes accompanied with feelings of mild to severe depression. Once again, this whole detox thing is like extreme short-term quality of life impairment to hopefully improve your quantity of life. I can understand it, but the level of discomfort doesn't seem that worth it to me right now, especially while I'm healing, and because none of this is exactly proven. Maybe when I'm older or read some of your comments, I'll look into it more seriously. Rotten meat. I have some high meat fermenting at the moment. It's only been a few weeks, so I'm going to leave it a little longer. And I'm doing it because I love experimenting with fermentation. But I'm not convinced that there is a huge benefit to making rotten meat a significant part of your diet. I can understand a little bit for additional bacteria, kind of like a probiotic yogurt, but I'll withhold my judgment until I actually try it out for myself. Maybe some of you more experienced primals can educate me on the benefits of high meat. If you disagree with me, then the comment section is all yours, but please stay respectful. There's just too much dogmatism in this community, and we should be able to openly discuss and debate these points. If I butchered Aajonus' philosophy at any point in this video, then I am truly sorry, and please correct me because I do genuinely respect the guy and the movement that he started, even if my mindset differs a little. Hope you enjoyed this video though. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay primal.